Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup, though. Started climbing my phone, she got me locked in on cup, though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup, though. Started climbing my phone, she got me locked in on cup, though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup, though. Started climbing my phone, she got me locked in on cup, though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup, though. Started climbing my phone, she got me locked in on cup, though. Got rose in my cup, though. Started climbing my phone, she got me locked in on cup, though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup, though. Started climbing my phone, she got me locked in on cup, though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup, though. Started climbing my phone, she got me locked in on cup, though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup, though. Started climbing my phone, she got me locked in on cup, though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup, though. Started climbing my phone, she got me locked in on cup, though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup, though. Started climbing my phone, she got me locked in on cup, though.
Well, good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be back. George Morgan here at your service. It's PSGL, it's Wednesday night, it's Spain tonight as well. Lots on the table, lots of battling. The title contest is still alive and kicking. And Jack, it's only taken us 10 rounds. We're on the 11th. It's all to play for.
Boromant goes on the inside and takes the lead on the final lap of the race. Now it's side by side between Boromant and Warner, but Boromant's got the inside.
A guest star here in this phenomenal race. Cameron Dowd looking to take P2 in his very first PSGL F1 PC race. Incredible to say the least. You see that Putin for lead. 1.5 seconds. DRS is the name.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to round number 2 of the PSGL PSF4 Championship. My name is, of course, Michael Edwards, going to be taking you through the action, and joined alongside with me once again is Mr. Quinn. How are you doing, Quinn?
Yeah, I'm doing really good. I'm excited for round 2 of the season. Of course, we are here at Qatar. Of course, a track originally made for the purposes of MotoGP, but yeah, now the F1 cars are going around it, and it's very fast, very flowing circuit, and it can be very unforgiving with fuel and track limits as well. So it's going to be exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's take a quick look at the Qatar track in question as we head around this 5.3 kilometer circuit, and of course 3.3 miles, 16 corners, of course, and that long DRS zone down in towards turn number 1. Going to be a very key one in terms of the fuel management around this circuit as well, because it is such a fuel eater, this track. And of course the game has been out long enough now that everyone will be well aware of this, but I mean, fueling up is definitely something that we are going to have to see from all these drivers here today.
Yeah, definitely going to see people overfuel as opposed to underfueling, as well, it can happen, but with the walls of the circuit being so far away from the actual track, it's going to be unlikely that we have any safety cars, although there may be just incidents with people colliding with each other. So yeah, people will have to be careful with their fuel and how much they overfuel, and if they want to be risky and hope for a safety car, then do that at your own peril, I say.
Yeah, and of course it is, 16 corners, 6 to the left and 10 to the right. The C3 soft compound tyres, C2 mediums, and of course the C1 hard compound tyres available for the drivers here today just the one DRS zone, as previously mentioned, on the run down in towards turn number 1, where we should be seeing a lot of the action and overtaking opportunities down in towards turn number 1. Of course, intermediates and wets, of course, available as well, but it should be very unlikely that we see those compounds come into play here at Qatar. But of course, let's take a look on what happened last time out in round number 1 at Suzuka. And of course, we look over at the standings right now. Giovanni picked up a very, very close victory last time out against the reserve driver of Nico, who pushed him all the way and only finished around about 3/10 off the back of him as well. So very close between those two, and we did see a bit of inter-team battling going on between the Williams pairing, where ETA Paul didn't have a penalty. Rara did have a penalty, but Rara would not concede that position to Paul, would he?
No, he wouldn't. It's one of the things where, of course, we know teammates don't want to get beaten by each other, and yeah, it's just, even though Rara did have the penalty, he wanted to finish ahead of him on track, and that ultimately led into the incident that we saw between the two.
Yeah, and not only that, I mean, it did cost Paul potentially getting himself maybe second, maybe even first in that race as well, because obviously Rara and Paul battling it out to such an extent. Those two ended up falling away from the top two in the end. So yeah, I mean, Paul won't be happy with his teammate, but a driver that will be happy with a fantastic drive last time out was obviously Tiramisu, currently 6th in the championship on 6 points, 5 points in 6th, and he came from the back of the grid up to P6, so a fantastic drive for the opening race of the season, despite a qualifying all the way at the back.
Yeah, it was a very, very good drive for Tiramisu, and of course it was just it just took advantage of what was happening ahead of him, like all the spins and incidents. Yeah, it's just taking advantage of it, and it was a great result for him and good recovery from his qualifying.
Yeah, absolutely, and of course he's going to be looking to maybe start qualifying a little bit better here tonight, so he doesn't have to do such a recovery drive at this circuit. But of course, in terms of the stewarding reports, fortunately for all the drivers in the top 10, no stewarding reports meant that they lost any positions. The only position change from the race results last time out at Suzuka was, of course, Lolo Vera receiving a penalty, which dropped Lolo Vera behind Fashion Gold. So Fashion Gold ended up finishing in 14th, and Lolo Vera finished in 15th. But everything else didn't really affect the finishing order. So, of course, Papayan did manage to get the fastest lap as well last time out in Suzuka, of course, finishing outside the top 10. No points available there for him. But let's have a look at the constructors after the first round, and of course we do see the Williams pairing taking the lead in the constructors, currently on 18 points. You got Haas F1 currently in P2, of course, with Giovanni's race win last time out. Then a 10-point gap all the way back to Alpine in 3rd, with Mercedes in 4th on 5 points, AlphaTauri in 5th on 4 points, 3 points for the Scuderia Ferraris, and of course the Aston Martins on 1 singular point. And of course we are waiting for the likes of Red Bull Racing, McLaren F1, and of course Alfa Romeo F1 to get themselves onto the board as well. But I mean, looking early, I mean, the Williams definitely do appear to have a very strong lineup for this season.
Yeah, they definitely do. They were both showed amazing pace in qualifying and in the race ultimately, and yeah, if they can work out a few things between themselves, I'm sure that they can be fighting for the constructors.
Yeah, absolutely, and of course it's going to be interesting to see if cooler heads prevail this time around with the Williams pairing. But of course we are here for round number 2 at Qatar. As previously mentioned, it is going to be a bit of a fuel drainer, this circuit, and of course that is due to the fact that it is a track which has no real slow speed corners. They are all medium to high speed corners, and of course you're on throttle for quite a lot of this circuit. And definitely keeping it all valid and within the limits of the circuit is going to be another key factor for these guys. I've seen many penalties being taken for track extending around this circuit. It's going to be an absolute nightmare for absolutely everyone to keep it on track, but also to keep the fuel in check.
Yes, like I said when we were going through the intros, such an unforgiving circuit for fuel and track limits. So yes, you want to be on the edge as much as you can, especially in qualifying, to get a better time, but you got to be careful not to go over that limit. You just, yeah, and especially during a race with fuel. Of course, like you said before, people will know that it's a fuel eater, this circuit. So hopefully they'll be well prepared for what the circuit is offering tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, we are loading up now into the session, so we'll be able to get qualifying underway in just a moment's time. But once again, I want to give you guys a quick look at the circuit in question. Of course, Qatar, 5.3 kilometers, 3.3 miles, 16 corners, 6 to the left and 10 to the right. One DRS zone down in towards turn number 1, going to provide the overtaking opportunities, and we will be seeing a lot of action, that is for sure. But as we are loading now into the lobby, we'll just be getting ourselves underway in just a moment. We got Jess in the chat. Of course, we'll be taking you through the action in F1 a little bit later on tonight, so much love to Jess in the chat. And of course, Michael Massey in the chat saying I for Bryn Mike the GOAT.
Good to see that the former race director's here. Didn't know he enjoyed a little bit of league racing.
Hey, look, I'm just gonna say, you know, Michael Massey, he knows it's the name. It's Mike. You can't hate on another person called Mike. That's the reality of it. But yeah, in qualifying, we are about to get in the race. We've got the first group of cars coming out of the pit lane. And I believe it is an Alpine that's going to be leading that pack. And that is, of course, going to be, it's going to be Coolman. Sorry, I was going to go up to Fraser there, but it is NLR Coolman going to be the first car out on track. And of course, I mean, as we mentioned, the track limits around this circuit is going to be a definite pain for some of these drivers, because when you're pushing it to the absolute limit, you really are trying to extend every little part of the track as possible, and around here, the margin for error is so minimal.
Yeah, especially through the triple right-hander at the start of sector 3. You have to get it absolutely inch perfect to be able to take it completely flat. And even if you miss one apex, the last of the 3 corners is going to be impossible to take it flat. So yeah, fine margins for error around here. Yeah. It's gonna be a very interesting qualifying. What's your, well, I have my ideas on where pole should be around where the pole time should be, but what's your thinking?
Well, I'm wondering if we're going to get anyone breaking into the 119s, because I do feel 120 should be the target for everyone out here, but are we going to see anyone break into the 119s perhaps? Maybe.
Yeah, it could definitely be possible. I was thinking low 20s personally. Maybe a 20.1, 20.2 is my guess for a pole time.
Yeah, well, we're about to see what the first driver out on track is going to be able to do, as Coolman is running down in towards turn number 1, braking 5th gear, trying to carry the speed through turn number 1. Good exit there for Coolman as he comes through turns number 2. Very cool, calm, collected. Now through turn number 3, and now the first difficult section, of course, turn number 4 and 5, where track limits can become an issue. And Coolman does very well there. Into the hairpin of turn number 6. Important to get good traction out of this corner, because it really does set you up on a little bit of a run in towards number 7. Now, the exit number 7, very crucial because you do drift out in towards turn number 8 here, and now, of course, in towards turn number 9, and you really set yourself up on the right-hand side of the track to really get through turn number 10. But you saw there a little bit of a back-end snap there for Koolman as he comes in to the triple right-handers, as you mentioned earlier, through turns 12, 13, and now through 14. Oh, very close to the track limit for Koolman, now through 15 as he is on the ragged edge coming through now towards the final corner. DRS will be activated here as he crosses the line, and it's going to be a 1:20.8 there for Koolman, and with that snap as well, definitely some time to improve there.
Yeah, definitely that snap. Well, I'm not sure how much it would have cost him, but would have cost him a good chunk of time there. Just trying to get on board with anyone. It looks like there's been a lot of invalidation so far, but someone who hasn't is going to be Fraser coming up to the line. What can he do? What time is it? 1:20.6 for both Alpines, but then Paul puts 2/10 on Fraser's head. And yeah, Williams once again looking very strong.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm coming on board with the Red Bull of Thiago coming through the final sector now, the triple right-handers, as he comes through 12, 13 and 14. As we see Ticho, his teammate, do a 1:20.8 coming down in P4, but Thiago now coming through towards the final corner. We do have a prediction in chat for pole position. Of course, NOR Wizzy predicting a 19.9 for pole position. Let's see if that comes true. But Thiago now to the line. He's going to cross it, and it's going to be a 20.8. So free driver. It's already on a 1:20.8 as well as Mustache crossed the line as well. He did a 21 flat as we got the Bayern coming through in P3 with a 20.6, and Azim up there into P2 with a 20.4.
Yeah, his lap times are flowing. We've got a couple of people in the pits. Both Mercedes are out on track. I'm not sure if Fashion God is lining himself up. Or...
In lap.
Yeah. Tiramisu is on an out lap, so he's going to be the next person to set a lap time. In the meantime, whilst we go on board, whilst we wait for him to start this lap, of course, with the first race of the season, it's too early to say who you think will be, doing well this season. But judging off that first race, who are your 3 picks to be doing well this season?
I mean, I can't lie. I still think, even though we've had that first race, I think it is still too early. Personally, I'm gonna wait, and I'm gonna wait until round number 4. Obviously, when we travel to the US and for round number 4 of the season, maybe even Austria for round number 5. But Tiramisu now approaching the end of his out lap, so getting himself psyched up to go again. Remember, last time out he did qualify in P20, and of course he's going to be looking to get himself further up the order this time because it was such a good recovery drive from Tiramisu, getting himself up to the P6 in the end. But coming down in towards turn number 1 now, the Mercedes. And this is where he really has to get this lap together, because I think the issue for Tiramisu last time is that it took a long time for him to get that first lap on the board, and around a track like this, it's so crucial to get that first lap in.
Yeah, definitely is. Even if it's a time that's a little bit off the pace, you're going to have that banker, you're going to have something to compare of your final lap to, so it does make a huge difference having a banker. If you see that you're 3-4 attempts up, that gives you more confidence, it gives you more of a boost to keep on improving your lap time.
And right now it's looking like a very smooth lap so far from Tiramisu as we come in to the triple right-handers, of course, at 12, 13 and 14 as we now begin to approach turn 15. And on the absolute limit there is Tiramisu, maximum commitment as he comes now into the final corner. Good exit out here, and he could be on for a good lap time.
He's going to get a slipstream.
Yeah, he's going to get
a little bit of a tow.
Down to the line comes Tiramisu, and it's going to be a 120.7. So a little bit of a toe at the end. Definitely would have helped him out, but of course he won't have to rely on that for the next lap, that is for sure. And the next man who will be on the final lap is of course Nico, the man who got P2 last time out in Suzuka.
Yeah, he showed a lot of pace last week, and of course he was in the Haas, but this time in the AlphaTauri, so he is a reserve, and last race he definitely showed that he's capable. If he's called upon, he's definitely capable of taking a full-time seat here.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe the two reserve drivers that we have here in tonight is of course Nico and WR Thomas in the Aston Martin. So, I mean, Nico definitely a driver going to be looking to continue to prove himself, capable of taking a full-time seat and being competitive immediately. Thomas, first time that he's gets to race with this grid this season, and it's going to be interesting to see how he gets on. Currently on a outlap right now, so we'll see how he gets on. But Nico now with DRS wide open as he approaches the line. And what's this going to be for Nico? And it's a 20.4.
Yeah, both AlphaTauris looking good. Azim and Nico both second and third provisionally, so it's going to be very interesting to see how those two go. And Rara has invalidated his lap, so still no lap time for him. What about Giovanni coming to turn 14? So just going to see where he can put his Haas. Going around the final corner now. Get on the power as early as you can, get an excellent run. He will be derating just before the line. What time will it be in his provisional pole? By just over half a tenth of a second over ETA Paul. So very good lap time there from Giovanni, with just under 8 minutes or 7.5 minutes left of this session. It's game on.
Yeah, absolutely. A fantastic lap there from Giovanni to, of course, get himself up there on provisional pole for the time being. Currently, it looks like your prediction for pole position is looking quite good at the moment, a low 120. Of course, Wizzy in the chat, they predict a 19.9. Will we see it at the end of the session? Time will tell. Coming on board with WR Thomas, the reserve driver, stepping in tonight as he's coming through the final sector right now. Approaching the final corner, the final braking zone, as we have a Red Bull across the line as well. Up ahead is Thiago Oticho, and it is Thiago who goes up into P6, 2/10 improvement there. But Thomas now to the line, and it's a 0.7 for Thomas, goes P10, just about sneaking into that top 10.
Yeah, there's still 4 drivers who have not set a time yet, but just gonna go on board with Mustache. Well, I'm gonna see if I do believe it is Mustache who's gonna be the next person to sell a lap time.
Yeah. Oh, Ticho.
Actually, no, it's Ticho.
Ticho out of nowhere there, 20.3.
Yeah. It displaces Giovanni, getting closer to the 120.2. So yeah, very good lap time, but got to stick on board with Mustache now, coming towards the final corner here. And it looks like he will be derating just before the line. What time will it be for Mustache? 120.742.
Yeah, and I believe we had an improvement coming in from behind of Azim going up into P3 as well. I think I saw him pop up a little bit, jumping ahead of Paul, and obviously on a 20.401, only 8 thousandths between Azim and Paul. But Ticho, fantastic lap from him. He gets himself onto provisional pole. Giovanni, obviously last week's race winner. Ticho wasn't able to score a point last time out, so I mean, this is why I wanted to wait until around round 4, round 5 of the season, because obviously in that first race, like, you never know, there could be some Suzuka specialists, and obviously that will not carry over for the rest of the season. So it'll be interesting to see which drivers were just good at Suzuka or which drivers are going to be competitive across the entire grid. And I think by the time we get around 4, round 5, we'll know the good balance between the drivers.
Yeah, we will. Just gonna be on board with Tiramiso now, coming into sector 3 in a triple right-hander. He was just over a 10th improved in the first sector, just over 2 tenths now. Could see him jump up into 6th place. But if the trend continues, it'll be a 3/10 improvement. He could, just had to jinx him.
I'm just going
to... coming into full effect.
Yeah, it was Quinn with the compensator curse, it wasn't me. I can't confirm.
Come on.
Honestly, I think we should keep
the other Mercedes as well.
Yeah, I reckon we should keep counting how many times we accidentally commentator curse a hot lap or something. But Fashion Gold up into P13 with a 20.7 goes right ahead of Coleman, currently down in 14th. Of course, he was the first man to set a lap time, and there hasn't been any improvements on him so far.
Yeah, we've got 2 people in 120.3s, got 3 people in the 120.4s, we've got 4 people in the 120.6s, another 4 people in the 120.7s, then the final 2 people set times in the 120.8s.
Yeah.
5 tenths separating all of the people who have set lap times so far. I have never seen a grid that close.
Well, I mean, it could get even closer, of course, as we're still waiting for lap times coming in from Rara, GL Sasha, and of course ASE Hario. Of course, the only 3 drivers yet to set a lap time. Hario out there on an out lap right now. Coming on board with Lorenzino coming through the middle sector right now. Let's have a look at this middle sector split, and he's up by 2 tenths, so this could be a 0.4, maybe even a 0.3, as traffic of the Mercedes of Fashion Gold caught completely unaware of the Aston Martin on a flying lap in behind, and that is a big no-no from Fashion Gold. Heartbreak there for Lorenzino. He was up by over 2 tenths and was on the way to potential 3/10 improvement, maybe even getting himself up there ahead of the likes of Azim, and of course maybe challenging the likes of Giovanni and Ticho. But that just coming up behind Fashion Gold, who was on an in lap there, just not realizing that the Aston Martin was on a flyer in behind, just causing a bit of chaos here at the end of qualifying. Just under 2 minutes to go in the session, so I think, is that Lorenzino, is that his session done for now?
Yeah, I think it is. And I was just looking at watching Aguado's lap, and he didn't improve, so that's his qualifying done. He will qualify no higher than 15th, which is disappointing for a driver like Aguado.
Hario now coming for the final corner. Oh, big snap of oversteer on the exit of the final corner there from Hario. But it will be a lap time on the board as he comes to the line, and it's going to be up to P16 for Hario, but at least he got a lap time on the board, which is obviously what he'll be taken out of this. That is for sure. Next man to cross the line, I believe, will be it will be Rara, I believe, the next man to cross the line.
Yeah, it will be. I was just looking at Lorenzino. He did come out, but it was just all in the gravel. And there is Aguado who's off, going through, I believe it's the second of the triple right-handers. But yeah, Rara coming up to the second sector split. Has looked like a very solid lap, and of course he's got Sacha right behind him as well. Of course, we don't know if it's a good sector or not because they haven't done bankers. So we just have to judge it off each corner, how they go. Very close to track limits for both Sacha and Rara going through the final corner. Rara is looking a little bit low on ERS and he will start derating before the line, same as Thatcher. What time will it be? Ferrara,
up to P5.
120.4.
And
Thatcher, 120.3.
yes, we're starting to get the Ferrari of is that Moustache coming to the line? Yes, it is, and goes off into the wall. We have a Haas crossing line. We have the Alpha Tauri across the line of Azim. I'm going to go on board with Paul coming from the final sector now. Of course, Paul currently in P5. Looking to get himself a little bit further up the grid. We've got Ticho on the lap as well. Giovanni across the line. Of course, he can't find any going. Coolman takes provisional pole 20.2. As here comes ETA Paul now to the line. And he's going to go onto the front row. 5 thousandths of a second. What can Ticho do? Ticho to the line. And he can't find the time. What about
Nico, he's invalidated. Fraser put himself up into P8. Padbine is going slow.
Yeah, that's it.
I believe that's it all done. My prediction comes through.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, it is Coolman who takes the honours of pole position here in Qatar. What a lap at the end from Coolman. He was the first driver out on track at the beginning of the session. And he did a 20.8, of course, to get underway in the session. Big snap of oversteer on his lap as well, which we did see. And of course, at the end of the session, he finds the time. He finds a grip to get himself up there on to pole position. And Paul there obviously jumping up on the front row of him, 5 thousandths of a second separating him, and only 7 thousandths separating first from 18th.
Yeah, indeed. Well, you mean 7 temps, not 7,000.
Oh, sorry, yeah, my bad.
Well, it's a temp separating the top 5, which is ridiculous. If that happened in actual F1, I'd be labelled as the best qualifying we've ever had.
Yeah, but let's take you through the order here in qualifying. There's, of course, Coolman, who takes pole position here with a 120.281, 5 thousandths of a second ahead of ETA Paul, who will join him on the front row. Ticho, who is only 3 hundredths of a second behind Coolman in P3, with Giovanni in P4. Sasha in P5, only a 8 hundredths of a second separating the top 5. Azim in 6th, Ferrara in 7th, Fraser in 8th, Nico in 9th, Tiramisu rounds out the top 10 with Thiago in 11th, Pepine in 12th, Lorenzino in 13th, Mustache 14th, Thomas in 15th, Fashion Gold in 16th, Aguado in 17th, and of course, Hario in 18th place. Under 7 tenths of a second separating the drivers, of course, and yeah, absolutely incredible, incredibly close here in qualifying. But of course, I have no words for the end of that session. Everything just got very quick and very rampant towards the end of the session, and of course, it's going to lead on to a very exciting race. And of course, a couple of drivers obviously struggled there in qualifying down towards the back. Of course, Hario needing to get that lap time on the board, but it wasn't a good and confident lap from him. Definitely not going to build any confidence from him going on into the race itself, as we look to see what the weather is actually going to look like. And of course, it does appear to be dry, as you would expect here in Qatar. So, ladies and gentlemen, we will be back in just a short intermission as we go to our sponsors. We come through at the start of the race, of course, midway through lap number 1. Absolute carnage happened at the start of the race. Unfortunately, we was in the sponsorship video as we were going through the turn 1, and absolute carnage happened there. Quinn, talk us through what happened.
Yeah, just Giovanni had a good launch off the line, and then just it was just utter carnage for him. He finds himself in last place with front wing damage. And yeah, all that good work in qualifying, and it's gone at the first corner. But we've seen Tiramisu also at the back of the grid with front wing damage. I believe Pepine's got front wing damage as well as Thomas. So a lot of people with front wing damage. Yeah, the bottom 5 drivers all with front wing damage, and I believe Fraser as well.
Yeah, absolute carnage in towards turn number 1. Apologies to the stream that we were unable to get a view of that on the stream, of course, and yeah, absolute apologies for that. But of course, we've got a tasty little battle going on right now for P6. Lorenzino, Thiago, Nico, Fashion Gold, and Aguado all very close to each other on track, side by side there. Nico is trying down the inside of Thiago, and he needs to be wary because Fashion Gold's in behind, looking for an opportunity as well to get through.
Yes, that was a very opportunistic move from Nico. You don't see moves through first of the double right-handers there very often, but managed to make it stick. Of course, Thiago thinking better of trying to go side by side, so he just let him through. He knew that he probably would have been squeezed off the track there, so it was good from Thiago. But saying that, Thiago's dropped back from Nico now. 1.2 seconds is the gap, and Fashion Gold is practically pushing him through all the corners.
Yeah, as is Hario pushing Aguado for the corners as well, in behind the battle for P10. And up ahead, I mean, Thiago's getting a little bit out of shape here. I'm wondering if he's got a little bit of damage. He is going to pull off into the pits, and I think that confirms our suspicions here. A little bit of damage here, but up towards the front, we've got Coleman and Paul side by side in towards turn number 1. The Alpine and the Williams as they go through. It is Paul who takes the lead of the race here as we begin lap number 3. DRS will be enabled, of course, as they come around next time to begin lap number 4. Oh. And Hario and Sasha getting a little bit close as well in the midfield.
Aguado is trying to get in on the action as well, but Hario, Sasha and Aguado all battling tooth and nail for 9th and 10th here. It's excellent driving, and they're just about keep in touch with Fashion Gold, as that is Fraser getting past Thiago, who of course was in the pits, and he's going to come out right ahead of Mustache, and that is Pepine and Giovanni fighting right at the back for 16th place. Giovanni down the inside gets moved, not quite done. There's still side by side to go, but Giovanni gets ahead of Pepine. Great battle there through the first few corners for those two.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, so everyone now from P12 down to 18th, it's all about the recovery drive. How good is your pace around Qatar? That is the question. Because of course, realistically, I mean, you do have an opportunity of maybe snacking some of the tail end of the points as Sasha comes into the pit lane, back up towards the front. Koolman gets close to Paul, but not close enough to go down the inside in towards turn number 1. Azim under a little bit of pressure for Rara on the exit of turn number 1 as we go through turn number 2. A little bit of a tap at the rear there from Rara on Azim. Azim doing very well currently in P3, Rara in P4. Does have a time penalty though, does Rara, and of course, I mean, we saw what happened last week. Rara had the pace at the front, but time penalties became the undoing of the Williams driver, and it looks like it could go a similar way once again.
Yeah, I believe the time penalty is for him leaving the track and gaining an advantage. So of course he didn't give the position back to whoever he passed off track, and yeah, it came a cropper to him as he's got, I believe it's a 5-second penalty.
So that will definitely come into play then when we come through the begin the pit stop phases. Of course, Rara will drop behind the likes of Ticho, the likes of Nico, the likes of Lorenzino, and maybe even down into that battle with Fashion Gold and Hario.
Yeah, it could definitely push him down into the battle, as that is Azim going very wide out of the final corner, but DRS and I believe some ERS deployment is saving him. Well, actually no ERS deployment, that was all DRS. Very much It could be set up relay. As Hirio goes down the inside of Fashion Gold. Fashion Gold trying to get a better exit out of turn 1, but isn't able to, so loses 8th place. And Hirio has that 3-second time penalty. So in long run, well, in the short term, it's not really doing much, but in the long run, it's big that he's got past Fashion Gold here.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, the battle up towards the front. Very interesting that Koolman, obviously, he's opting to stick in behind Paul for right now. Obviously, he's almost on 100% ERS. He hasn't really used anything. He's just happy to sit in the DRS train at the moment. But when does Koolman begin to put the pressure on? Because right now, obviously, there's 4-car train. Obviously, we'll turn into a 3-car train once the pit stop phases happen, and Rara serves that 5-second. But yeah, I mean, these guys need to make sure that they keep Ticho this DRS train, as Koolman there runs a little bit deep coming through turn 15. And that, of course, will be a little bit of a warning, a little bit of an invalid valid lap time popping up perhaps. And of course, Azim not tucking into the slipstream as well. Everyone's just cool and calm right now in this DRS train at the front.
Yeah, definitely. And just looking at the position changes from the first 5 laps of racing, we've got Hirio gaining 10 positions. He started the race last place and now he's in 8th. He does have a penalty though, as well as Fashion Gold and Aguado both gaining 7 positions, and that is Azim getting a 3-second time penalty. Yep. And biggest losers from the start of the race, of course, Giovanni was in that lap 1 incident. Quickly just have a look at Mustache going around the outside of Tiago, and he gets it. And Pepine goes down the inside of Giovanni. So that is an extra position lost for Giovanni. So 13 now, and there's Tiramisu. He must just be really unlucky because he's lost 8 positions from qualifying 10th. And also Sasha losing 6 positions from qualifying 5th.
Yeah, absolute heartbreak for the drivers currently outside of the top 10. Because of course, caught up in early incidents, meaning that they had to make an early pit stop. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get the lap 1, turn 1 incident there for you guys on stream, but
free wide
into turn 1 momentarily as Koolman takes the lead of the race. Azim up into P2, Paul goes down into P3, and right there we have just seen the importance of DRS and just the lack of having no DRS. Paul was a sitting duck for both drivers there.
Yeah, but what this battling has done has brought Ticho back into it. 8 tenths behind Rara now, so now it's a little bit of a rear end step out there, as that is Tiago getting a 3-second time penalty, and Tiramisu as well. So like we said before, is very unforgiving with track limits, and it's showing because we've got, believe it is 4 drivers with penalties by track limits.
Yeah, and of course Azim
only lap 7.
Azim then just went momentarily off track, of course extending the track limits. Paul currently stuck in P3. Of course he is right on the back of Azim, so we should be seeing a bit of DRS action now down the start finish straight. Ticho is just about holding on to the back of these guys. Rara though being right behind Paul, that is gonna be a little bit tasty in terms of the Williams box. We did mention it last week with what happened between these two, and they were battling out as Azim down the inside of Koolman for the race lead. A lot of space and respect given between the pair through turn 1, and it's reciprocated through turn 2 there with Koolman giving Azim the space, which is fantastic there. But I mean, what I was going to say, Paul now having Rara behind him, we've seen in the first race, and Azim's lost the car. Azim loses the rear end, and around he goes, falling down the order is the AlphaTauri. Heartbreak for Azim as he drops out of the battle for the race lead all the way down into P7 now. He's in no man's land, 2 seconds off the back of Lorenzino now for P6, and of course with that time penalty it's going to be even more difficult for him, as he has managed to come out in a bit of a gap, still ahead of Harry Old-Fashioned Gold, but that spin now is big for Azim, because now it puts him somewhat under the pressure of some of these guys that have already made their pit stops due to wing damage.
Yeah, it definitely does. And yeah, half the grid, well, 10 drivers are still yet to make a stop, and I've only just noticed that Aguado's fallen down to last place, so it may be some damage or maybe an issue on his end, because last time I saw he was running in 10th place.
Oh, Rara there, tapping the back of his teammate through turn number 1, almost losing the car there. Was Rara, but yeah, this is so interesting now with the Williams spin, because we've seen Rara and Paul, they will battle each other, they will fight. We saw that at Suzuka. They do not want to lose to each other. I mean, their teammates, just on paper, from the looks of it, they will battle, they will fight it out. And with Rara having that 5-second time penalty, potentially, I mean, if he gets ahead of Paul and pits the lap that Paul wants to pit, I mean, Paul is just going to get absolutely hung up to dry by his teammate.
Well, the only saving grace for Paul is the fact that Rara has that 5-second penalty, so even if he has to pit a lap later, he should have it covered off anyways, because essentially what this is, well, essentially the gap between Paul and Rara, if you include the 5-second penalty, is 5.2 seconds.
Yeah, but obviously it could be a situation where it's a late call to come into the pits for Rara, and Paul's already come into the pits, and it could be one of those things where it's a little bit too late to turn out of it, if you know what I mean. But yeah, I mean, right now, everyone line astern in the top 4. Ticho has done well. He's got himself a ring DRS range, and he's closing up to the back of these guys. So Ticho well and truly in the battle for the race lead. As I say that though, gets a big snap, taking a little bit too much curve through turn number 5, and of course again on the exit at turn 6 to the hairpin, losing the back end again is Ticho, so not looking very comfortable. And right now you've got Nico and Lorenzino closing up to the back of the top 4 here.
Yeah, I was just about to mention that all of these snaps from Ticho is just bringing Nico and Lorenzino back into the fold, and it's getting so close. He's using his ERS, he's on the button, and that is a Guado round. Yeah, Guado's fun round, he's just in the middle of the track, not moving. He's going to get disqualified here.
Yeah, unfortunate Guado. Yeah, I mean, he's just stopped on track, disqualified, parked in a dangerous location. Aguado, of course, out of this race, and let's hope that doesn't trigger a safety car at all. But I mean, good news is that the car is gone now. But yeah, Aguado, of course, driven in F6 last season, was very good. Almost, well, was in the championship fight in F6 last season, going into the final race, of course, at Abu Dhabi, where an unfortunate incident unfortunately took him out of the possibility of winning the championship. But since coming out into F4, it's now been a great start of the season for Aguado, as Rara there get a big snap on the curb, and Rara very well managed there, because he almost lost the car completely. Brilliant reaction from the Williams driver to keep a hold of that car right there.
Yeah, what this has done is brought Nico and Lorenzino into this, as that's Thiago with another 3-second time penalty. He's really not liking this Qatar circuit here. But yeah, the top is now a top 6 for the race win. Or for the lead of the race, it's the top 6.
Honestly, we do like to see it. We really do. And of course, we are on lap 11 of 29. We are getting to that stage of the race now where, of course, some of these drivers will be thinking about what lap they're going to pit.
Yeah, I do think that we've still got at least another 4 or 5 laps. Well, I'd say round about 15 or 16 we'll see the first of the hard runners start coming in.
Oh yeah, I mean, around 15, 16, maybe even lap 70, we should start to see the hard runners coming into the pits. But obviously right now, obviously in this train, they're going to be thinking, okay, what's the best lap to go in now? Do I go for the undercut? Will the overcut work better out for me? Where will I come out? What kind of traffic am I going to be in? Will these guys at the start of the race on their medium tyres, will they be in front of me? Will they hold me up? All of these thoughts are going to be running through the heads of all 6 of these drivers right now in the top 6.
Yeah, just on board with Thomas as he tried to go down the inside. Well, it was actually Moustache trying to go round the outside of Tiago at turn 1, and he got all out of shape and opened the door for Thomas, but he wasn't able to capitalize on that mistake from Moustache. So the fight for what is 12th is still as started, and going back up to the front, going around the final corner is Coolman. He's going to have all eyes on Paul and Rara behind. I don't think Paul is close enough. Yeah, it looks like straight line speed of Coolman even without DRS. I'm not sure if he was deploying any ERS there, but seems like he's got very strong straight line speed, does Coolman.
Yeah, and honestly, that's the balance as well around this circuit as well. You gotta think what's going to give you the best downforce in the middle, and of course the final section of the track, obviously, to get through the corners effectively and quickly enough. But of course, down that main straight is such a long run in towards turn number 1, where DRS is going to be absolutely Herculean for these drivers. But as it currently stands, I mean, looks like Coleman currently does have a slippery car in a straight line, which will help him defend. But of course, Paul not using his ERS. He's currently just used a little dab of it. He's almost on 100%, and Coleman has used about 20% of his. So these guys doing well on their ERS management. Rara currently on 60%. Ticho currently close to 70%. Nico, obviously, since getting back in that train, obviously he's landing his ERS build up, as is the first of the pit stops coming in for Coolman there, lap 13.
Yeah, Lawrencinho as well coming in. So yeah, this will trigger a lot of pitters. This will obviously trying to go for an undercut on the 4 drivers behind. That is Rara and Paul.
Now, this is what I was talking about. If Rara comes into the pits right now, Coleman's going to get a 2-lap undercut on Paul, and that's going to absolutely do him over in terms of this race strategy. And Rara has a time penalty. So again, it comes to that Williams inter-team rivalry that seems to be going on here. It's carried over from Suzuka, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely has. And I think the thing with, what must have been going through Rara's head was he wants to pit this lap, so he's just going to go ahead regardless of if he's got a penalty. Big snap there from Rara. And yeah, it's just, Rara looks like he's got good pace in clean air, so it's going to be interesting to see if he actually pits in and where he comes out in relation to Coolman and Lawrencinho. As Lawrencinho, 1.6 is the gap. Does Rara come in? He does. Forces Paul to stay out. Ticho stays out as well. Nico comes in. So I'm going to keep my eyes on Coolman just to see. That was a purple sector too, so he is pushing very, very hard. So it's going to be interesting to see where Rara and Nico come out.
Ticho and Paul making contact on the exit of turn number 1. Ticho trying to take a tight line. Contact made with Paul, and now the race has gone from bad to worse for the Williams driver of ETA. Paul, we was on board with that. We saw it happen as Ticho tried to get a tight little undercut going on there through turn number 1, and of course it did not work out for him. Ticho tags around Paul, and both of these drivers now are going to be completely hung out to dry in terms of the pit stops. And importantly for Rara, he's managed to get himself ahead of Fashion Gold and the likes of Fashion Gold obviously he's ahead of, and of course Tiago as well, who's running about 3 seconds off the back of Hario. So those guys that pitted at the start of this race, essentially they are battling for the final point paying position.
Yeah, they are, and it's going to be interesting to see where, well, he lost. This will be really interesting. What happened to Ticho?
From what I saw there, Ticho came
he
in
was
the pits
going into the pits, and but usually a car comes out of the pits if you retire in the pits. I'm not sure what happened there. But yeah, Paul is in the pits. With that tag, he lost about 5 seconds, so he might well come out side by side with Rara.
Well, we're going to see as we're starting to see some of the guys
Not.
Rara's going to get ahead of him, and in fact Paul could drop behind the likes of Fashion Gold and Hario here. The overspeed in towards turn number 1, and yeah, both the Ferrari and Mercedes get through ahead of Paul, so that tag lost absolutely everything for the Williams driver, and of course his teammate overtaking him, then pitting, preventing him from covering off the likes of Coleman and Lorenzino, left him out to dry, and of course that incident just compiled the issues for Paul in this race.
Yeah, it did, and yeah, Coleman is all of these stops being out of sync with the stopping has caused big gaps to form. Lorenzino 2 seconds behind Coleman. Nico is closing up now. And looking at Hario, he is getting very close to the back of Fashion Gold, and same with Paul, he is getting close to the back, and yeah, line of stern are the two, Fashion Gold and Hario. And Azim is now into the pits, the last of people not to pit are finally in, and yeah, Hario is going for a tighter line through the last corner. It looks like Fashion Gold isn't using any ERS. He might see the red light flashing. There it is. Rara with the fastest lap.
And here comes Paul. Is Paul going to potentially look for a move as well into turn number 1? No, he's not. Tiago comes out of the... Azim comes out of the pits just behind this battle as well. As Tiago's into the pits, so is Thomas, so is Giovanni. So they are making their second pit stop of the race. As Paul down the inside of Fashion Gold as we come through the double right-handers, and very, very well done between the pair of them, because that could have ended in disaster there. That is such a tight section of corners to be going side by side through.
Yeah, it's not a section of the track that you want to be going side by side through, but if you're gonna do it, take that as an example of how to do it. Both of them respecting each other, and yeah, it was very well done from the two of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, 2 drivers so far out of this race. Of course, Aguado, who decided to park in a dangerous location and got himself disqualified on the start-finish straight. And of course, Ticho, after the incident with Paul, came into the pit lane and immediately retired as Nico gets through on Lorenzino. Up in the P2 goes the AlphaTauri, and this is where I think Lorenzino and Nico need to work together here. Just keep using DRS for each other, as look at that, Fashion Gold, a sitting duck, and gets overtaken by both Azim and Paul as they get through. Up in the P6 and P7 respectfully, and now they can begin the hunt on Hario for P5, and of course Paul with a lot of work to do if he wants to get any further up the grid. But yeah, he is not going to be happy with the race and how it's turned out so far. Of course, his teammate with that time penalty jumping ahead of him, then pitting, covering off the undercut from Coleman, so Paul wasn't able to. And then of course the incident between Paul and Ticho, which of course I think Ticho immediately retired out of the race because he knew that he had to take full responsibility for that, so making sure that he didn't score nothing here tonight.
Yeah, I'm just looking at someone who's just pit, Tiramisu is on the soft tyres.
Yeah, on the soft
With,
tyres.
I believe it's 12 laps of racing to go on the soft tyres. He took the mediums 15 laps, but from my experiences, the softs start to fall off after about 7 or 8 laps. Well, no, they just fall off the cliff after 7 or 8 laps. So maybe it's just me.
Paul and Mario, and should be able to get through. Paul with the fastest lap of the race, so Paul is flying right now. Hario around 20% ERS, Azim we're about 30, and so as Paul is now going to try to pull away from the Ferrari and maybe try to close in that gap on his teammate at the head of Rara, and maybe we'll see another little Williams scrap here in Qatar, as we saw in Suzuka, between Rara and Paul. And of course, once again, the top three have bunched back up. Looks like Nico and Lorenzino have worked together pretty well, DRS in each other, and of course have now got within a second of Kuhlmann. Kuhlmann obviously on around 35% of the battery, the same as Nico, as Lorenzino currently in P3, of course, on around about 20%, so he's had to use a little bit more, but definitely doing his best to stick onto the back of these, as we've got Azim pretty much pushing Hario now through the triple right-handers of 12, 13, 14, as we come through the left-hander now of 15, all about the exit here, and looks like Hario will just about have DRS as Nico overtakes for the race lead with DRS down in towards turn number 1. And let's see if Azim will get this move done on Hario. Yes, he will. Easy as a like job done for the AlphaTauri, and that's an important move because both of these guys do have penalties to their names.
Yeah, it's very important there, and just looking at Paul, he has gained about 4 attempts on his teammate on that last lap, but it's not enough to be able to catch him by the end of this race. So yeah, it's looking like it's still going to be an excellent finish for the Williams pairing, but it's quite...
It's shrouded in controversy again, and that's the thing.
Yeah, controversy. Tiramisu puts on a soft, gets the fastest lap at 1:23.0. Thomas picking up a 3-second time penalty. And look at this train right at the back, led by Tiago, got Mustache, Thomas and Giovanni. Fighting for no points, but that's what you do for racing, and it doesn't matter if you're fighting for no points or the race win. You go out there to race.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, Mustache is fighting for a point here, because obviously the Bayern is only just up the road, about a second up the road, and of course Sasha does have a penalty to his name. So, I mean, there is still something on the line for both the Alfa Romeo of Papayon and of course the Ferrari of Mustache. We've got Azim now getting through on pole for P5, and Azim on a bit of a charge late in this race, and of course if Azim and Paul work together with DRS, then we'll definitely see that gap begin to fall between them and Rara. And of course, that Williams battle that we have spoken about several times, as Rara gets a little bit out of shape coming through, of course, turn 5, and of course now on the exit of turn 6. 4 seconds a gap between Azim and Paul. Remember, just a lap ago we were talking about how it was going to be not enough for Paul to take enough out of Rara to catch him up at the end of this race, but with DRS and working with Azim, there definitely is a chance now.
Yeah, that gap is now 3.8 seconds, or 3.9 now, but yeah, they're definitely working together. Yeah, Tiramisu, after setting the fastest lap of the race, has decided to go into the pits and retire. He's like, let me just get the fastest lap and go. Yeah,
and of course I think that might be the strategy coming from a couple of these guys with penalties outside of the top 10. As his AI's come out, of the pits here, and yeah, it's got in the way of the front runners. Of course, Nico Kuhlmann having to take a avoiding action. Lorenzino and now has fallen out of DRS range, and he's 1.4 at the back with no ERS to his name. And this could be big as well, because if Rara has the natural race pace over Lorenzino here, obviously Lorenzino has slightly older tyres as Tiramisu leaves the session. The gap between Rara and Azim is now 3.4 seconds as well. 3.3 on the exit of turn 6. Could we see the final spot on the podium be potentially under a bit of pressure here for Lorenzino?
It could be, but it's also, there's about from Paul to, well, Rara's gap to Lorenzino is 4.1, and the next person without penalties is his teammate Paul, and that's a further 3.8 seconds on top of what is already a 4.1 second gap. So not looking likely for Paul, but anything can happen. There could be a late safety car. It is getting closer to the cut-off time for, well, safety cars. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. And yeah, the gap between Azim and Rara is still closing very rapidly, I have to say.
Papayan picks up a 3-second time penalty. Lap 23 now is on Mustache. Sasha's into the pits, retires from the session. Sasha in the pits, retiring from the session, and now it is all set up now for Mustache to get that final point-paying position.
Yeah, it's just worked out in his favour.
As Giovanno's down the inside towards turn number 1. This is not what Mustache needs. A bit of a battle here where Giovanno gets squeezed out, and that's going to allow Thomas to potentially have a look around the outside for turn 2. Unable to get the run that he needs, so Sasha retires and of course leaves the session. To be honest, I think Sasha realised that the chance of collecting that final point was beginning to go, because obviously Thiago was closing in. Of course, Thiago was bringing everyone along for the ride, and Mustache now at the back of this train, and he is down in 14th, but with no penalties to his name, will jump ahead of Thiago, Papayan, Giovanno and Thomas to take that final point-paying position. Meanwhile, at the front, Coolman with the DRS is going to close back up to Nico, but it looks like Nico over the rest of the lap does have the pace on Coolman, but DRS is allowing Coolman to close right back up to the AlphaTauri, and of course very difficult for Nico to break that DRS. And I mean, what we're seeing at the moment is Coolman just managing this race, knows that he hasn't got a penalty, so he will inherit the race win regardless. And yeah, it's a very mature drive from the man in the Alpine.
Yeah, and something that I've only just realised now, Azim and Paul are both part of VT8. So they are both working together to close up the gap to Rara, so Paul can potentially finish ahead of him.
Well,
the gap between Rara and Paul is 3.4 seconds, yellow flags, and that is Thomas.
That's a VSC. Will it be a full safety car? Will it be a full safety car? Yeah, lap 24. And it's a virtual.
It doesn't look like it. He has gotten going. He has got going once again. But yeah, what this has done is look at the gap between Azim and Rara. It's not doing any favours for Paul.
Nah, so of course under a virtual safety car, the gap will grow, but obviously once we get back to green flag racing again, that gap will begin to close back up again. The thing is, obviously, I mean, you brought it up about both of them being ETA drivers. I don't think we want to open that kind of worms and with this, because obviously the same could be applied with Coolman and Rara, of course, NLR, and of course last week with Giovanno and Rara. Oh, Thiago the drive for the penalty.
Thiago. But yeah, even like we were saying about the gap, it's 3.4 seconds, so it's definitely more than when the VSC, well, before the VSC came out. So Rara has gained a lot from this. And yeah,
Thiago has retired. Session. Same with Thomas, I would believe, by you as well. Yep.
Yeah, Thomas as well. So Mustache still looking good for getting a point here.
Yeah, I mean,
someone else that this VSC has actually helped out a bit is Nico. 1.5 seconds is the gap from Coolman to Nico, so outside of the DRS range, and they're both sitting around the same ERS.
the question is though, can Nico pull out the gap that he needs to finish ahead of Coolman in this race? And will Azim and Paul close that to Raras? We've got obviously Thiago leading the section. Of course, that is obviously the lobby host, and of course we hope that that doesn't bring up any issues here. As obviously when the host leaves, sometimes issues do occur in the lobby, so we hope that doesn't happen. Azim is beginning to close back in on Rara again.
Yeah, it might just be too little too late now, although 4 laps are racing including this one and the gap is 2.8. It's going to have to be a Herculean effort for him to close that, but something that's not proven to be a Herculean effort is Nico pulling away from Coolman. 2.1 seconds is the gap now, 7 tenths gained on the last lap from Nico to Coolman. He's definitely pushing hard. Both of them are both sitting around near enough empty on the ERS front. So is Rara. Everyone apart from Lorenzino is basically sitting on 0 in the top 6.
Well, I mean, this was what I was alluding to, obviously, just a few moments ago. Because obviously, when Coolman had DRS, it meant that he could always stick with Nico. But with Nico, it looked like he had the pace on Coolman over the rest of the lap. It was just DRS that was helping Coolman stay in, of course, with the straight line speed that Coolman has as well to his advantage. Now, with that VSC, allowing Nico to get the 1 second gap that he needs, we are seeing the gap begin to build, and Nico could potentially be looking at a race win here. And of course, with Giovanni currently down in P10, but with that time penalty, he would drop behind Mustache and not gain anything here tonight. That, of course, will give Nico, the reserve driver, the championship lead.
Yeah, that's wild to think about, and you gotta think you're a championship leader and you're not a full-time driver. I think he must be thinking, well, I should really have a full-time seat.
Well, we'll have to wait and see how the season goes and see if Nico does manage to get himself into a full-time seat position. But right now, lap 27 of 29, Nico leads away. 2.7 is the gap. Let's have a look at the penalties. And there's a 3 second time penalty, so 2 more attempts needed for Nico to be in a race winning position. Coolman currently in second place with Lorenzino currently in P3, now beginning to use a bit of battery, and could we see Lorenzino battle it out with Coolman at the end of this race? Because of course did have a bit of battery to use, so he has used quite a bit of it now, but he does have a little bit more than Coolman in this moment in time, so we have to wait and see. Lap 28, the gap between Rara and Azim 1.8 seconds, so we might be looking at a situation where it is a little bit too little too late for the likes of Azim and Paul, and maybe getting into battle with Rara, but you never know. One snap or one little mistake from Rara, as we just saw moments ago. Rara there getting a little bit out of shape as he came through turn number 5. Of course, his tyres being a couple of laps older than Azim's, potentially pressure begin to build on the Williams driver currently in P4, and of course Azim in P5. That time penalty will not help him. He will finish in P6 at best right now, but he's doing a fantastic job, and the gap is 1.3 now.
Yeah, it is, and something I just want to bring your attention to, the fight for the last point. Mustache is right on to the 3 seconds, and Giovanni and Pepine are scrapping hard for this 10th place.
Yeah, because of course right now it is for the final point in position, and of course between Giovanni and Pepine, if they can build that gap to a Mustache, then of course they'll be looking good. But of course we are on the final lap of the race right now. The race leader Nico has built that 3 second gap that he needs as Paul gets through on Azim, and The gap is 1.4. It is, in my opinion, too little, too late. But you never know. One mistake from Rara, and that could be all she wrote. And ladies and gentlemen, I mean, it's been a very entertaining race. A lot of twists and turns, of course, over the course of this race. The one thing that we have come to the conclusion of is, of course, the Williams drivers. They do not get along.
No, but it's already within DRS range. From when he passed Azim at turn 1, the gap was 1.3. He's gained nearly 5/10 on this lap alone on Rara, and yeah, it's going to be very close. If the gap continues to close as it is, it's going to be very close between the two come the line. But someone we need to be focusing on right now is the reserve driver, that is LDL Nico. An excellent race in Suzuka, and it's going to be topped off by a win here in Qatar. Coolman crosses the line for P2. Lorenzino in P3. Rara holds off his teammate, but that's actually... Paul did let Azim finish ahead of him on track, but he does get back ahead of him due to the penalty. Hirio in 7th.
Oh,
Fashion
Mustache is
gold.
at the point. Mustache is outside the 3 seconds.
Oh, Mustache. What has happened here? Now
Giovanni
it's the
and
2... Oh, let me have a look at the penalties. They're both on 3 seconds. It looks like it might be Giovanni that takes it. He's got the advantage of having DRS.
This is going to be close as a drag race still around. Oh, it's Giovanni. How close was that? That was
just it was 25 thousandths of a second.
I mean, it's very well. I mean, we saw a drag race in a real life F1 at Brazil, and we saw a drag race here in Qatar for PSGL F4 on the PlayStation tier. But my God, what an exciting end to that race! And yeah, I mean, definitely going to be some controversial controversies revolving around this race. Of course, with the Williams pairing again, and of course Azim and Paul seemingly working together. And you know, that could definitely be another thing, but of course it could go the other way as well, with the likes of what's called Coolman and obviously Rara. Potentially you could say that we're working together as well. Like, it can go both ways with that one. Obviously we will refrain from saying anything like that, because we like to keep in the spirits that everyone is driving for themselves. But of course it is Nico who takes a victory ahead of Coolman in second place. It is Lorenzino who comes through to complete the podium, with Rara holding on to P4 ahead of his teammate Paul in P5, Azim in P6, and Hario in P7, Fashion Gold in P8, Fraser in P9, and Giovanni completes a brilliant comeback drive to obviously get that final point in the end. No safety car to help him, but he does pick up the last remaining point. Papayan in P11 with Mustache in P12. What could have been for him? And of course our non-finishers were Thomas, Tiago, Sasha, Tiramisu, Chicho, and of course Aguado. And of course the fastest lap of the race did go the way of Tiramisu in the end. And yeah, I mean, a very exciting end to the race. Obviously, apologies as well for the lap 1, turn 1. Obviously not being visible, of course, with the what's called, it was going on in the background as the sponsor video was, of course, playing. But unfortunately, it is definitely a race where a lot of drivers will be very angry with what happened on lap 1. But then, of course, there'll be anger from certain drivers as well, with some of the battles and everything that was going on. And of course, in the end, one thing that we have learned is that Williams, I think that's going to be a battle that Bruce will out the entire season.
Yeah, it's going to be Hamilton-Rosberg-esque. I reckon it's going to be. Of course, we saw what happened in the first race. It's just going to escalate from this point onwards. But
do you know what?
It's creating storylines in this season.
It really is. You said Hamilton That's what I'm thinking.
Oh God, yeah.
That's what I'm thinking. Of course, that is definitely going to be a battle to keep our eyes on as well, of course, as they go through the season. But of course, it was a fantastic win from Nico. Did manage to get outside of the DRS range, obviously under the virtual safety car at the end. And of course, that is all he needed. Once he got outside the DRS range, he was gone. And unfortunately for Kuhlmann, he wasn't able to keep within that 3 seconds, and Nico was able to take victory. And of course, for the second place in Suzuka and a race win here now in Qatar, he does lead the way in the standings. And of course, he is a reserve driver. Definitely, in my opinion, obviously the biggest performer so far this season.
Oh yeah, I have to agree with you on that point. He showed that in the first 2 races here and Suzuka, he can fight at the front, and yeah, he's definitely going to be someone to watch out for. If well, it's a matter of when he gets a full-time seat, in my opinion, not if.
Yeah, I mean, Roscoe, we're going to have to wait and see if he does get that full-time drive here in F4 on the PlayStation tiers. But of course, next week, let's have a look at the calendar and see where we'll be going to next week. And of course, we will be going to round number 3 at the Hungaroring for the Hungarian Grand Prix. And of course, another track where it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Of course, track limits are another key factor there, but it's one of those tracks as well where overtaking opportunities are very few and far in between. And of course, so easy to lose it on some of these curves as well at Hungary. And of course, the infamous turn 4, and of course, the infamous inside curve at turn 5 as well could definitely catch a few of these drivers out.
Yeah, can definitely. That's definitely what it's gonna come down to. But we got the two DRS zones with, I believe it's 1 detection point through to turn 1 and to turn 2. So it's gonna be interesting. If you can get a move down into turn 1 with DRS, you're gonna have that advantage of just pulling away into turn 2. So yeah, that's gonna be the main overtaking spot going into turn 1.
Yeah,
I definitely believe that.
Absolutely. But of course, that is next week. But until then, guys, I have been Michael Edwards. I have been joined in the commentary box alongside Quinn. And we'll catch you next week for round number 3 at the Hungaroring. But until then, guys, it is goodbye.
See you.
Desperately trying to hang on. He's got the inside. All here is through on the left-hand side. Hooks the apex, gets on the power nicely, and that is job done. Jarno Opmeer now to the last couple of corners now. His finest drive, his greatest drive, and he's done it at the Circuit of the Americas. He returns to the top step of the podium. Once again, the GOAT is back. Jarno Opmeer wins the US Grand Prix in a stunning Grand Prix.